And so they develop certain recording techniques, or are a part of the beginning of some of these recording techniques that had never been done before, because no one else had really given up the idea to quit playing live. As a matter of fact, it would be a very ill-advised thing to do. The only group that could really have gotten away with it was the Beatles. So that also represents their significance and their ability to break through that barrier, to make these kinds of changes and become dedicated to the recording studio and have people actually still pay attention. So that's very significant. Now, some very interesting things that they did during this time include like adjusting the tape speed. Why would you do this? Because maybe the area where you want to sing is too high for you to sing. So if you play the song slower and in a lower key, and then record the vocals in that key, you can then speed it up, which gives it this amped up quality. So adjusting the tape speed becomes actually a sort of a George Martin affect. And so to hear an example of that, where this song was actually recorded in a lower key at a slower tempo. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Now you can tell, I'm gonna go back and play that again. You can tell because they sound a little bit, as I like to say, chipmunky. They sound a little bit like the Chipmunks, which the Chipmunks, that's classic tape speed, messing with the tape speed, and here's what it sounds like, But keep in mind what makes art. It's rooted in the word artificial. That sounds so good. It sounds completely unnatural. And it sounds so good. There's something about that energy, about breaking into that boundary and having that tape speed speeded up to give it that little bit more brighter, more forward kind of feeling effect. So that's pretty groundbreaking, because then playing with tape speed, like I said, that's the foundation of the Chipmunks, of that particular type of music. Alvin and whoever the other two Chipmunks were. It's all just playing with tape speed. Of course, you can do this the other way. You can slow it down. You can slow things down and put backward messages in your music and all kinds of. So playing with tape speed becomes a significant thing. Multi-tracking, where this is what I used to do. As a matter of fact, I was in a band in high school and college, and eventually me and the guitar player moved on alone. We could basically do everything ourselves, but not all at once. So we'd first record the piano and the rhythm guitar, 2 tracks. Then next, we're going to add in maybe the bass. And then we're going to take those 3 tracks and we're going to bounce them together into the 4th track and make 1 track with those 3 instruments. Then we're going to record the lead guitar and the lead vocals and maybe any strings. And now we've got 6 total tracks, and we've done them 1 or 2 at a time. That's multi-tracking. That's what the Beatles are doing on Sgt. Pepper's going forward. Well, by the time you get to Led Zeppelin, this is such common practice in music. I mean, Jimmy Page is layering layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of guitar tracks. So Pink Floyd is going to do this, where you're basically playing a solo, and then he's going to go back and play along a 3rd higher. So it's the same guy doing it. They're just recorded the first one, then they're going to go back and layer the other one in on top. So this is also a very, very important development that the Beatles give. The use of guitar feedback, we talked about that a little bit. Of course, Jimi Hendrix is really the pioneer of guitar feedback. But if we look at Revolution 9, if we look at some of these examples where we see distortion in the guitar, that's also one of these really important breakthroughs that they have. And then sampling. Now, my introduction to sampling came about in the 80s, which is when sampling really became a very, very important part of music. Basically, what a sample is you can record a sound, anything, someone coughing. And then you can put it pull it into a system and like assign it to a key on a keyboard. And so they do this in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. They're like, if you hit that key where you programmed it, it sounds normal. But then if you go up a step, it sounds like, and then you go up a step, so you get, you can like play Mary Had a Little Lamb. Just by pushing your finger down, because it's activating the same sample all the time. So in terms of, music technology, sampling is huge. Hip hop is like completely based on sampling. So, that's how did the Beatles influence hip hop? Well, bingo, right there. And they start to introduce this technique in like Yellow Submarine. Now, this is George Martin kind of developing some of this, really more than the Beatles. All the horns were taken from a previous recording that happened to be in the same key. He kind of got lucky. It happened to be in the same key and imported them as a chunk into this new song. But this wasn't part of the recording process at all.
In the land people were coming in of submarines,
so they were sampling
so
from another recording. They gave rise to a multitude of subgenres, including hard rock, which really can be traced back to Helter Skelter. And, hard rock musicians are very aware of this. That song has been covered a lot. Also, Revolution, maybe to some degree Come Together. Those songs are foundational to the genre of hard rock. As I mentioned before, progressive rock or art rock. Yes, and Genesis and Gentle Giant and King Crimson and things like that. Psychedelic music also, because Pink Floyd is kind of developing that psychedelic stuff, but it doesn't get much more psychedelic than the Benefit of Mr. Kite. And also things like folk rock, which we may tend to forget about, that the Beatles had such a hand in kind of helping establish really the folk rock genre of the 1970s. And some of that dates back to, like, Michelle. How else would we classify this song except for folk? And there's a lot we could say about George Martin, who really was responsible for being that kind of musical mentor to the boys. He's the one that kind of helped teach them music theory. He's the one that helps develop some of these recording techniques, like speeding up the tape and using sampling. So there's a reason he's Sir George Martin. I mean, he is really one of the most important people in the music industry in the 20th century. And part of the reason why the Beatles are what they are and became what they became cannot be divorced from the presence of the fifth Beatle, Sir George Martin. This is a warm touch.
A girl who misses much.
See, there's an example of that distortion in the guitar. I mean, we can really see with A Day in the Life and Happiness is a Warm Gun, we can really see this development in music. These songs are crafted. This is craftsmanship in a way that we've not seen before. These works, Happiness is a Warm Gun. I mean, yes, it's about shooting up heroin, but we can really look at it from a musical standpoint of this is like this perfect marriage between classical elements and popular elements, and how we, in doing so, create something kind of new. The people were like, "Whoa!" I mean, it's elevating things. It's making it more artful. It's exploration of the human condition to just the way the music is structured and set up. There's a lot going on in that particular piece of music. It's really a brilliant piece of music.